Well, howdy. How you doing? In a little second, we're moving into a settings view, but in this video, I want to just try and clear up a few things that if you're going to be following my settings and wanting download patches and stuff, you need to be aware of a couple of things and why I run the way I run through my rig. I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to cover the real of it when it comes to dual miking, stereo rigs, dual amp stereo rigs, wet dry rigs. Hopefully in short form, so about 10-15 minutes, you'll help be able to understand a lot. But the first thing you need to understand is to achieve a lot of this, I run my signals separately using my main left right and my sub outs of the unit going directly into a mixer that goes before my loopers. Now, you might be in a band where you don't have the luxury of having 4 channels of their mixing desk. So I'm going to show you as these videos go on over the next few weeks how you achieve this, doing it the way that you would do it. We've also got other stereo rigs that we're going to be running through this unit. Dual stereo rigs, look at that, over the next couple of weeks. So watch this space. So yeah, let's get the real of it. Let's dive in. Boom. Right guys, diving straight in, we've got the Vox in a stereo left-right. I'll show you what that means in just a little second. We come into our signal chain. What you need to know is that's an HX effects, and it's actually sending signal into the front end of my chain where I've got a noise gate and I've got a compressor set. We come in, we've got nothing turned on. I'm just going to disengage this divide here and come on to the first channel to discuss. Now what we've got here is a Vox amp setup. We've got its EQ afterwards. We hit a divide which is set to single at the moment. The HX effects is there so I can put some effects post amp of this channel. And I have the mix to stereo. We have the microphones here split and they come out of my main left right only. Okay, what we're going to do now is switch to the other channel. I'll just quickly explain this one. We have another Vox amp pushing slightly differently. I then come into my divide, and this is how I get my stereo spread on this channel. Notice my speakers are joined here. There's a reason for that. I'm going to cover that later in the video. Now here, what's creating my stereo image is that the divide is set at the front end to dual, the back end is set to left right, and I have my spread set to 50. I could go all the way crazy, put the spread all the way really wide, but for the purpose of this I just want it there in the middle at 50. Okay, what helps my stereo spread is my EQs. I'm pushing different things, and if I was in a studio recording a stereo part, I would record one part using maybe a Marshall and capture that with a SM57, let's say, and then I would maybe capture the other part using, let's say, a Vox and capture that using a 421, let's say, and I would have them recorded in mono, pan them hard left, hard right, and then I have true stereo imaging. But here we're copying one signal chain, so we need to add in some difference. So I do that using the EQ. You can do it using stereo rig amps. I'm going to talk to you about that in a little second. So here I'm taking a cut at 500s, I'm taking a cut at 4K, I'm bringing my high cuts in at 8 and 125 for the low, but on the other side I'm pushing differently there, I'm pushing differently here. I cut 4K on a wide, 400 on a wider split, I take 3.5K on a wider split, and I'm only coming in at 6.3K, so more aggressively on this side, so a lot less highs. Okay, and I come through to here, and what happens is when I engage my completely wet, there's no dry signal coming through this, I get the reverb come through on its own, and because I'm using one microphone, the frequencies are not being pushed differently further, if that makes sense. So let's split this. This is going to be a subtle change we're going to do here. I'm going to put that onto the 421. I'm going to put this onto the 87. And there I've got slightly different frequencies going on. You can hear more of the reverb in your left ear. And that's why in this particular channel I keep these engaged for the way that I route things. And I'm going to put that on the 57 mic. We're going to talk about why. I'm using 212s on this channel. Let's talk about the other channel and how we get stereo widths and the beginnings of that into stereo. So let's engage this Let's go into that channel. Now, at the moment, this is the Vox coming right up the middle at you, coming out my main left rights with one microphone on it, 421. But let's split this channel. And when I do this, this is like adding a divide here. Without using a divide, it divides these speakers for you. And what we're going to do is we're going to set this mic on 112 on the 421. We're going to come across to this side. We're going to leave it as 112. We're going to change this microphone to the 87. I'd use that in the studio. I might just pull that in a little bit. Now then, see? You're already divided. You don't need to divide further. You're already split. But you can manage the stereo field. Now, some people will advise you to do this. Let's move that into there, that into there. Let's put that on dual. Let's put this on left, right. And you see, yeah, I've got stereo spread. That is no different. Bear me a second. No different to doing this. Sorry, I just got ahead of myself there. I've still got the stereo spread. What affects things is the divide here before there. It's here in this little tool called spread. Now listen to the spread. I'm going to open it up. It's opening up the stereo field now, and the further up here I get, I'm going to go faster up, the wider apart they become. That's where your stereo spread is. Just by disengaging these before you do anything here, you've already got a dual mic stereo spread, as I've illustrated. This spreads it further, okay? So, advantages to using this. Let's have a look. Let's put a reverb in here. Gives me the same problem I have when it's downstairs, which I've got slightly different frequencies going to each side. Let's put, as people suggest, these speakers in this way around, and let's try running the way that you are running your unit. We would have to add the reverb here, wouldn't we? Okay? Now I could run this in true stereo, so let's turn this off. Let's take this amplifier, put that amplifier into there with its signal chain. Let's take this one, put it into there with its signal chain. Now I've true stereo, but I've no control over the stereo spread. Are you with me? So this is how you achieve it in the real world. And this tool doesn't work here because we've already achieved it, and the mix is working after the speaker, so this doesn't work very well. Now if you were running this method, and let's say you wanted to use a reverb, well, to get it into both channels, you've got to either place it before the amp, which is not what you want, which isn't working there because my noise gates are on, or I've got to choose which side I'm going to run it. You've only got one reverb block in the GT1000 unless you're using your stereo returns. So what we're going to do is we're going to move my reverb back into where I want it. I'm going to take this amp, put it back into my sub out channel. I'm going to move these speakers back to behind there. Move my amp back in front of the chain. Well, let's have that chorus at the end of there. I'm going to get back to this channel now. We're in stereo spread. Now something that's really important is if you use a compressor, any effects you use after this divide now have to be set to stereo. If I engage this compressor, you'll hear I still retain my stereo spread. Okay? If I use any of the other compressors, they're all mono. It kills that signal. So that would have to be before your divide, but you're compressing there. And if you were to add a chorus here, let's say, that's what you get. I tend to run with running the compressor at the end of the chain there and compressing the chorus as well. So yeah, that's why I'm running that this way. But in this situation for this rig, and people have been asking me to download these patches, and they won't sit in, you'll have to rebuild your rig or rebuild the patches for them to work, is, as I say, I've got mains are here, sub outs are here, and I can separate them at mixer. I have that luxury. You might not have that luxury. I'm just talking you through the principles of how I get to where I get to. Now with this set like this, I have dual mic'd stereo fields, but it's not using the full of the stereo width. And here I have something that's using the full of the stereo width, and my speakers are attached. Using this method allows me to go completely wet on this channel, introduce my dry channel, and remain completely dry. However, if I wanted, I could, using the stereo channel of an HX Effects, add in a delay from there in stereo, and I get the full stereo spread, and I haven't had to move my speakers into here. If I did that, I wouldn't get my full stereo spread. I'd have to decide where I'm putting, well, yeah, I probably could if I moved it before there. Either way, I'm going to show you over the next few weeks ways of doing things, but they come with compromises. This way kind of comes with no compromise other than you take up 4 channels on a mixer if you want to do that. And live, for what I do when I play live in my live streams, that's what I'm doing to get the clarity, so my guitar doesn't sound over-processed. I don't have too much information coming out of just 2 cables. I've got a lot of information that I'm able to separate and isolate in a mix on a mixer if I get to a gig and there's a problem room. For example, with my basses, I run all my subs through this channel, so everything below 100 Hz and everything above 100 Hz comes out the main left and right. And that way, if I get to a building where it's just too boomy, I can pull the bass back on the mixer independently. Likewise here, when running wet dry, if for the venue the guy at front of house is like, no, it's too wet, he can pull it back on the mixer, or I can pull it back on my mixer pre-loopers. So it gives me a way of micromanaging my signal chain. Now over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to take this further. We're going to be sticking 2 notes at the end of here, replacing this and doing a shootout between these and 2 notes in stereo. And then about 2 weeks later, we're going to move this amplifier into this signal chain. So we're going to run a dual rig here out my sub outs, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that, because I'm then going to have a stereo rig in here coming via the HX Effects, where we've got a V4 coming in. We're going to have some real valve amp action in here and be using the other amps and doing shootouts and exploring this and trying to get those valve tones out of this unit. So yeah, if you dive deeper into this unit, things aren't quite first what they seem, and they come with compromises. The deeper you go, the easier it gets in some ways, I've found. This setup might not work for you, works really well for me, and I'm loving the results. I just need to finish dialing in my amps. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. Catch you in a bit.